right, welcome into another edition, Carps Corner. Continue to grind through spring ball as some things are happening, some movements going on. We had the first big scrimmage on Saturday. So just to go back over the timeline again, had a couple practices before spring break, just shoulder pads and jerseys. Spring break off, come back Tuesday practice, Thursday pad practice, Saturday obviously big scrimmage. And so what they're doing on the days in between, they're lifting weights, they have meetings, reviewing the film. They meet obviously on days they have practice too and get some lifts in here and there. But you basically have something every day. It's just not practice. So there's a decent chunk of stuff in, and they got some third down work in on Thursday. Ryan was pretty happy about that, but continued to add third down stuff in because, defensively you want to be good on third down, but then also that's where you're really finding out about your quarterbacks, because you're going to see, the 3rd and 6 to 10, 11, you're going to see a lot of different stuff happen, a lot of different things, come aboard. Blitzing, bracket coverages, guys dropping, man blitz, zone blitz, 3 down, 4 down, all kinds of different looks, single high, 2 high. And so there's where the variety comes in. And so that's what makes it tough on quarterbacks, tough on young offensive linemen, tough on young centers. So that's where you're going to start to see some of those things manifest themselves. And that's where you begin to find out a little bit about your quarterbacks, centers, running backs, even young wide receivers, and what they can ultimately pick up and handle. So we'll start off here. We got some Ryan Day sound, some things he said from Saturday scrimmage. We've got some stuff from Friday as well from JT and Larry Johnson, on the defensive line and where everything is at there. And then I'm going to break down some of the guys who I thought performed well in the scrimmage, some of the different situations that I thought, went pretty well with everything, because they do a variety of different stuff, where it's some third down, some second down, here's the distance, here's there, on what it is. And then they'll do called moving the football, where they may start on 3rd and 6. If you get a first down, though, you keep driving. And that's good for both, because it forces you as an offensive coordinator and offense to transition from scenario to scenario to scenario. And the same thing for the defense. And defensively, you can get tired because they can go tempo. They can do a bunch of different things that can jack you up a little bit. So there's a lot of different stuff in there that they have the ability to do as well. But I want to start off with some sound, some stuff from Ryan Day, talking about, the practices, competition, growing up front as far as, the defensive line, what they're all about. But we'll start off with, what he was trying to create in the competitive situations that he wanted to try and put the offense and defense in on Saturday.
It was practice 6, and one of the things we've been talking a lot about is competing. So you heard it over and over again, and that's what we're trying to do, is a winner or loser. Whether it was the individual drills, team drills, 7-on-7, red zone pass, the goal line tackle early in practice. Something we really wanted. It all went down to the wire, 102 to 100. That's what we're trying to do. The guys were into it, and we'll look at the film and see about the execution, but I thought overall the effort was there and the competitive nature was there.
And so that's what you heard it right there. When he starts talking about the third down, some move the field, and you want to see how competitive guys can stay. And can you stay competitive until the very end? And battling back and forth, winner or loser early on, and some of the run game stuff, some of the different individual stuff. They did tackling, live tackling to the ground, open field. Who's winning? Who's losing? Can you break a tackle? Can you make a tackle? So all that stuff, factors in, because it's tough. You can't put guys in just crazy tough situations anymore, just based upon how the game is. So when you do that, you have to make sure that you're putting them in some situations where, hey, when we do get competitive, we're competitive in everything, because we're not going to sit here and go live tackling every single day, especially during the season. It's just not practical. So where the game is now and how it works, we're going to have to make sure that when we do compete, we're competing at an incredibly high level, because those are the teams that ultimately end up being good. And then talking a little bit about the grinding up front. And those guys, they get tired. They start doing the move the drill and remove the ball, and you're starting third down, first, second, third, first, second, move. Like, you just keep going. They're not subbing. Larry's letting them roll. And so creating that toughness. Then all of a sudden you get to a situation called timeout. You're on the 7-yard line. It's, third down. How do you go and get a stop? And so that's some of the stuff. So he talks about that and the grinding up front.
I really liked how the defensive line worked through the whole practice, though. I think Tyleek and Mike and all the guys up front, even late into the scrimmage, were right in there grinding, and Mike got through right there on that one that I know the offense didn't like to be calling a sack, but he got through free and probably would have turned and made the tackle, but he kind of veered away from the quarterback. But I thought those guys grinded. I think we need to continue to see that out of the defensive line because, man, they can flash, but the name of the game is continually doing it over and over and over again.
And so it's not just the young guys and the old guys. You want to see all those guys playing hard and pushing each other back and forth and then pushing the offensive line as well. So good news, some grinding up front, especially on the defensive side. And then this is the battle that everyone wants to talk about. We'll get into it here today. And I've kind of stayed off of it just because it's so early on. And I don't want to, think that there's these massive swings and these ebbs and flows that are making a big difference with the quarterback battle. But this is Ryan talking about Kyle McCord.
I thought he had some good plays. I thought better in the second half, especially when we got that ball in the midfield. Early on, it was just okay, I think. But again, it's hard to tell. We've got to look at the film. But he certainly flashed there at the end, like you said. Had some energy about him, had some leadership. And I think the whole offense was feeding off of that.
And some good stuff right there. And, started slow. And you're going to have that. It's first live-ish situation. Now, quarterbacks weren't live, but everybody else was. So Kyle McCord started out practice a little bit slow. Was able to pick it up. You heard Ryan address it and made some plays down the stretch, both with his feet, moving around, finding guys open down the field. Did a good job with that. There's still a lot of room to grow, and you're going to see that. But you've watched him slowly start to build this thing. And so when you start practice slow, I almost like that as a coach because I want to see how you respond. So Kyle McCord and Devin Brown, both of them not maybe having the greatest first half of practice on Saturday, but then bouncing back. And especially Kyle, being able to put some good stuff out there and leading his team and seeing that energy and how it was ultimately shared there. And, it just becomes infectious. I want to hop in now to JT Tuimoloau, and talking about him and, becoming a leader and what that's been like for him.
Crazy that I'm one of the older heads, one of the leaders, and I thank all my older brothers that that left, but I still talk to them. They still talk to me on how to lead and what my role is on the leadership aspect. And it's weird knowing that I'm young, but I'm also the older guy in the room. So just got it. That's the role I have to take on, and that's the role I thank my team for trusting me with, and as well as the coaches.
So. Important stuff right there as you hear him talk about, leadership, what that ultimately means, what that looks like. And it's weird because going into your junior year, like you wouldn't think of those guys as guys needing to be big time leaders going into your third year because he's still only really been here. You got to think he came in August his freshman year. So it really hasn't even been 2 full years. But the reality is that room, you got guys like him, Jack Sawyer, Mike Hall. I mean, these are some of the veteran guys who are going to be playing a lot. And people are going to be looking to them for leadership. And so you need to be able to provide that out there. And the number one way you provide leadership is being the best version of yourself every day. And so he's going to have to make sure he does that. Then also setting the standard, being the tempo setter as well in the room. And this is the other guy he came in with, two of the best defensive ends in the country. His guy, Jack Sawyer, and just the competitive friendship and fire between them.
Me and Jack are like the same type of people. We're always competitive, no matter, like I said, no matter if it's good or bad, we'll always feel like there's something we could even do better. And that's just the competitive nature in us. Jack is getting better, and we're all getting better. He's pushing me too. So I thank him and love him for that. But Jack, always love Jack. He always has that go mode.
And so you like to see that, him pushing Jack, pushing JT pushing Jack, going back and forth. And being that competitive, but also being friends. Like that's the stuff that's great about college football. And you're going to watch these guys grow together as they came in together. And hopefully both of them have massive years. Cause I think that's what most people are anticipating. And the reality is they've played pretty well to this point. JT obviously having a huge game against Penn State, and Jack being consistent last year. You're looking for some of those more explosive plays. And you usually see that start to happen for guys, middle of that second season, third years when you go from being a guy that can make some plays here and there and being consistent to being someone who's a tempo setter now for your team. But even with those two guys, you still need some depth. And especially up front, you've got to be able to play 6, 7, hopefully 8 guys. And Kenyatta Jackson's a dude that they've been waiting on, hoping he's going to step up big. Larry Johnson had some comments on that.
He's got a lot of potential. He's got a lot of potential. So now it's just learning how to play the game at maximum speed, if that makes sense. So that's the part. You know, when you're on the scout team, you can play at a slower pace. Now you're with the big boys now for the first time going against the 1s and 2s. Now that speed's got to pick up. So it's a learning process. Everything's a process. And hopefully the spring ball will get that out of him, give a chance to really show himself. But he's got talent.
This is where we're at now. Everybody kind of levels up a little bit. Speed goes up. The intensity goes up. Everything starts to increase as you begin to climb that depth chart. And the reality is, he's had some good days, but he needs to start stacking them and having more good days as he continues to move through. I want to start off, we'll talk a little bit Kenyatta Jackson, since that's where we were. I thought he got some good pressure on Saturday, played pretty well, did a good job, especially when he was on, his left, defense's right, or his left, offense's right side, because they got to get some better tackle play there, and that's something I know Justin Fry is working on. This may even be a portal solution. They've got Tegra Tishabola came in already. But there's going to be an adjustment period where he's got to level up a little bit. A couple other young guys they're throwing out there. I think Fryer's doing a good job on the left. But that right side needs to kind of get some improvement done. But Fryer battling with Sawyer and JT has been good, because those are going against some of the best. And if he can block them, he can block anybody. But we'll start after that. With the quarterback battle. Kyle and Devin, both guys, I think, as I talked earlier, said they started slow. Kyle was, I think, starting with the first team most of the time, but Devin's been playing some really good ball. He wears the 33, which is kind of wild. But I kind of enjoy that. Sets him apart. But I think you're going to see some differences in the offense this year with whoever is playing quarterback. Given that you're going to move the pocket some, those guys are athletic. Probably see some quarterback runs. Both those guys, are willing runners, willing and able. And, Kyle had a heck of a play at the end of the scrimmage to utilize his legs. Threw a great deep ball and a double move to Jaden Ballard that we'll get to. But, some speed options, some stuff, and some different things. Like, there's some elements you could incorporate, the zone read and things when you have a quarterback that can run. And whether it's Devin or whether it's Kyle, both of those guys possess some different levels of athleticism as far as their strengths. But it's going to be more than, just the simple drop back stuff. And coaches like the variety. And frankly, they need it, because neither one of those guys is CJ Stroud, his final 6 games at Ohio State. And we forget how good he is. And he grew into that. He still made some mistakes and did some things early on. So there's going to be room, and a lot of room, for him ultimately to grow. So I talked about Jaden Ballard. He's been a guy I've got high expectations for. Jaden Ballard, I have high expectations for this year. And you watch him at Pro Dance. So I brought it up because all the scouts are oohing and on. So everybody knows he's got gas. The dude can fly. He's got gas for days. The consistency element. Is he running his routes perfect? Is he getting in and out of his breaks? Is he knowing where to break off? Is he reading the defense right? Those are all the things that he has to be more consistent at. And then all of a sudden, you see him run a double move in the opening play of move the ball, and all of a sudden Kyle hits him over the top and it's a touchdown. And he beats Jordan Hancock, and it's like, boom. It's tough because he's so fast. And so when you see that, you're like, man, we need more of that. And even if he's a guy that gives you 15 to 20 snaps, if he can give you that deep ball action, he can give you one of those. If he can give you the threat of that, that is huge. It's revolutionary for this offense, because Marvin can run the mid-level stuff. Mecca is going to be great underneath and do a lot of things as well. You've got a ton of young guys, which we'll get into some of those guys as well as we continue to move forward. Julian Fleming's a big body guy that can physical you, but having a guy with just elite top end speed over the top, that can be Jaden Ballard. He needs to keep developing, and he has been so far this spring. And I know this, Brian Hartline and Devin Jordan, they're not going to let him get away with anything. And so they know the potential he has there. If he's not reaching it, it's on them. And so we'll stay. No, you know what? We'll move off of that. Stay on the offensive side. They'll go to the tight end room. I think Royer has looked really good. Physically, finally looks like he has everything back. He battled some sickness stuff. He had mono, I think, COVID, all these different things, lost some weight, and all of a sudden he finds himself in in the Peach Bowl in the second half thinking, holy smokes, I'm out here. It's him and Mitch Rossi because you got to move Xavier back to slot. I mean, it was wild. But Joe, has done a good job. He looks well. He's been blocking better. He runs really good routes. Man, he's athletic. And physically, he looks big. So I'm excited about the combination of Royer and then also Cade Stover, who has been that physical blocker, who last year I think we saw him do more things than what we probably anticipated. And then I'm watching him catch a seam down the middle of practice in 7-on-7, threading the defense, splitting the defense. And so they're those two guys. We could see a lot of 12 personnel, 2 tight end packages. You get a mobile quarterback, you can move them around, run some boots and different things that I know that they'll probably want to incorporate. And so that's going to give this offense an added element, stuff that they didn't really have prior, that just gives the defense more to work on. But because you have 2, young dynamic tight ends, well, K's not really young, he's in his 5th year, but dynamic tight ends, they give you that ability to do it. And then one other guy who I think can really be a wild card for this offense is Chip Trainum. Chip is incredibly fast. He's incredibly bulky. He's getting a lot of tailback work in the spring just due to the fact that, they're still working some guys back in from injury. But I think Chip could be a guy that you could see in that H-back role, maybe some lead blocking out of the eye, maybe you flex him out, maybe you run him up on wheels because he is so fast. But there's just a variety of things that you can do. Imagine Kyle Shanahan, look at what the Niners do, fullbacks there. I mean, that's a lot of what you think he could potentially be. So I'm very excited about Chip Trainum because he looks incredibly fast, physically put together really well. And like I said, the kid's got a load of physical gifts. Flipping over to the defense before we finish out with some freshmen. A couple of the young linebackers. People have asked a lot about Gabe Powers and CJ Hicks and those guys coming in, and even Reed Carrico for that matter. And I thought they all, played pretty well. Reed got involved in some plays. Gabe, I thought, it's tough because he's tall, making sure he can stay down, still see, but it's changed direction. When you get high, it's tough when you're a long-legged dude. And so his change direction has gotten better. He's been working on that. Made a really good play in a short yardage situation. I think it was on Chip or Chop, one of the two. They were thick. It was a thick running back, and I'm trying to remember in my mind which one it was to, but it was one of those guys hits him about a yard in the backfield, wraps, twists, and it gets him down before the yard marker. It's like a third or fourth down. You get the fist up, you're going. I think it was a 4th down situation. So that was a big play by Gabe. And those are the things that are confidence boosters that, it's good, big in the moment, but when is one play maybe bigger than it normally could be? It gets everybody looking at you like, hey, man, you just brought down a starting running back. You're a younger player and you made a big time play right there. And that just infuses you with confidence. Other guys start believing in you too. So I think that there could be more than just, one tackle in that play for Gabe Powers and what he's been able to do. Because I can't remember which one it was. Both those guys are thick and really good short yardage backs. Then the other guy with him, CJ Hicks. CJ, he's been flashing. He's been showing his athleticism. He's got to continue to be more consistent, get some things cleaned up. But it's going to be hard to not have him on the field this year based upon what I've seen him being able to do. He's good in the passing game. He's very instinctive in the running game. He's got to get his fundamentals, some of his technique cleaned up a little bit, but he's not that far away. But it's just going to come down to the consistency piece, doing what he needs to do, play in and play out. And that's what's hard for some of these young guys. And so learning, he's got to get his butt down a little bit too, just the same as I talked to Gabe, I talked to CJ, get down. Hey, you're a really good athlete. You're even a better athlete when you bend your knees a little bit more. Imagine that. And then lastly, one of the other guys inside from the safety position. And everyone thought bringing in Jihad Carter, spelled the end of this guy. Cam Martinez is playing really good. He's a natural instinctive playmaker. His coverage has been much more on point. Everybody's looking at last year, in the Michigan game and giving up the double move. And Cam's a smart dude, man. He's one of my favorites. One of my favorites. And the thing is, as soon as you talked to him about it, he knew what was going on. It's like, hey, can't get lazy with your eyes. You can't try to do too much. You can't play man coverage looking back at the quarterback. And so I loved to see that. He taking some criticism, guy coming in potentially to replace him, and he's just been making plays, getting his hand on the football and being a leader. So that was big time. And then also moving outside, Jordan Hancock, as I mentioned, he got beat by Jaden Ballard. That's going to happen, especially with guys that are that fast. You're going to get beat at defensive back. But what I loved is he stayed after it in all practice, then comes back and makes a play in the red zone near the end when they're in a highly competitive situation, gets his hand on a ball, gets it down. And as a corner, you cannot dwell on the last play. Most important play always in sports is the next play, but especially at defensive back, because you're going to get beat. You're going to get PI. They're going to call holding on you. That's just stuff just happens. And so it's on to the next. And it was great to see Jordan, who was injured to start last season, came back, started playing better, to continue to develop that mentality. Because he's a really gifted player. He's a pretty looking player out there, man. He's got, he's built, he's strong, he can run well, he flips and sips well. Like, he's everything you'd want in a guy. He just needs to continue to be competitive. And I think that they're going to have a lot of that playmaking ability on the outside from him. Now, two guys got their stripe removed. We got the stripe alert removals. David Igmanusum, who is the transfer from Ole Miss, got his black stripe off. And David reminds me a lot of Jeffrey Okuda. And he's got long arms, just like standing in his pads. He looks like his build, but his physical traits are there. Like, he's tall, he's fast. He's not the most fluid guy, but when you have elite speed like that and you're a little taller, you're going to have, you might not be the most fluid dude. It's not like a guy like Cam Martinez, who's just a little bit smaller. So this is a big deal, but he can get physical on guys, plays the ball really well. He's got a lot of different things going for him. So that's some big time stuff there with David. I'm excited to see what he can add into that corner room with Hancock and Burke, some of the other guys that they've got going. And then also Carnell Tate, freshman wide receiver, black stripe removed. I think he's the first incoming player who hasn't played college before, because David obviously was at Ole Miss, to get his black stripe off. Oh man, he had a really nice scrimmage. He's been playing well, and he's going to be a problem. He's going to be pushing those older players like the Jaden Ballards. Like, you either got to go or you're out. And so this is really good. This is a great situation for Ohio State to be in. His Hart's going to have his hands full trying to figure out how to get all these players on the field. But I think it could be a really, really good situation and scenario for him to be able to do this. So Carnell Tate, keep eye on him. Early climber, early riser for the Bucks so far. And hopefully that translates into a nice rest of the spring and training camp, and a guy that can potentially help. And you could be looking at going 6 receivers you need to get on the football field. But that's it for this edition of Carps Corner. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, continue to push it out there. We'll keep you updated through the spring. We'll have you some updates in the summer. It's late March already. April, May, June, July. 4 months, and we'll be into the throngs of training camp. So enjoy it while it lasts. It'll be here before you know it.